As the final task of tonight, you will walk to the door, turn the lock, lock your house and walk back. Then you will sleep peacefully. But that lock, that small ordinary metal mechanism, represents something extremely important that your ancestors did not have for 300,000 years. And what is it? Security, of course. Something so ordinary for you was a matter of survival for them, because they might not live to see the morning. Real, absolute, guaranteed safety. It was one of the most needed yet hardest things to obtain in human history, because before that, those insane nights were not spent behind a door. The night was spent outside, in the pitch-black darkness. And within that darkness were the animals that today we fear losing to extinction. The ones we see behind cages, the ones we watch in documentaries. Creatures that, for us, have become more of an entertainment spectacle than a danger. They roamed freely outside, without any modern tools restricting their freedom. And the worst part was that they were hungry and dangerously lethal. So how did humans survive? But first, let's understand what came before. The threats your ancestors faced were far greater than anything we can truly imagine today. On the African savanna, during the Pleistocene era, that long and brutal chapter of human history, the ancestors of modern humans, Homo sapiens, along with earlier human species, shared the same ecosystem with gigantic predators that are now extinct. And once you truly picture them in your mind, it becomes terrifying. There was absolutely nothing protective separating humans from those predators. We already know the size of today's leopard, but the Pleistocene leopard was larger and far more powerful. It was so skilled at climbing trees that even climbing a tree was no longer a safe option, because before you could even make it up, you would already be dead. The giant cave lion, known today as Panthera leo-spelaea, was nearly 1/3 larger than the modern African lion. Its shoulders exceeded 1.2 meters in height. It looked less like a lion and more like a tank. The giant hyena, Pachyrhocutta brevirostris, was nearly twice the size of modern hyenas. It had the power to kill a human within seconds. The sheer strength of it was unimaginable. And there was something else that made these predators even more terrifying: the night itself. The layered structure behind their retinas doubled incoming light, sharpening their vision in darkness. It allowed them to see far more clearly at night than anything you witnessed during the day. The conditions were unbelievably harsh. Humans of that era, on the other hand, were almost blind at night. Think about that imbalance for a moment. In front of you stands a creature that can see in the dark, run faster than you, overpower you, and move more silently than you ever could. Meanwhile, you are standing barefoot in the open wilderness, empty-handed, unable to see anything around you. And that raises a terrifying question. How did the human race survive? What did they discover? The first weapon, fire. Perhaps the greatest discovery humanity ever made was fire. The fear of fire is an evolutionarily encoded response in almost all land mammals. It is not a learned behavior. It is a reflex carved into the nervous system through millions of years of natural selection. Imagine a forest burning, animals fleeing in terror, pure panic, an uncontrollable force that spreads endlessly, consuming everything in its path. Our ancestors ran from that force too, those who could not escape died. But the descendants of the ones who survived would eventually discover a new kind of power. That meant fire was something capable of terrifying and driving away nearly every living creature, and our ancestors realized it. Around their campsites, they created protective circles of fire nearly 9 meters wide. Predators would not cross those boundaries. Wild animals could only suppress their instinctive fear of fire for so long, no matter how hungry they were. But fire also had limits. It could not burn forever. The wood would eventually run out. The flames would weaken. And the moment when the fire began to shrink, when the circle of light narrowed, became the most dangerous moment of the night. Because then there was nothing left standing between humans and the darkness. Keeping that warmth alive was not simply a matter of comfort. It was survival itself. Burned bones and ash remains discovered in Wonderwork Cave date back nearly 1 million years. And this was not just about staying warm. It was about keeping the monsters back. The second weapon. The Group A single human could not survive alone in the open wilderness at night. The chances were almost non-existent. This was not weakness. It was reality, and our ancestors understood that very well. Research by Robin Dunbar shows that early humans lived in bands of roughly 20 to 50 individuals, and that was a remarkably strong group size. This number was not random. It was the optimal size large enough to maintain social stability while also being capable of defending itself together. Even during the night, certain members stayed awake to keep watch while the others slept. This was an organized, deliberate, and highly coordinated defense system. Without it, the human race might never have survived long enough to reach the modern world. And this is where something incredibly fascinating happened. In 2014, research conducted by anthropologist Polly Wiesner among the Yuhuansi Bushmen of the Kalahari revealed that nearly 81% of nighttime conversations around the fire were stories, and researchers began to understand why. Most of these stories were about encounters with dangerous animals, narrow escapes, and moments of rescue. This was not merely entertainment. It was the transfer of survival knowledge, and survival depended on it. Which route had a leopard been seen on? Near which water source were lion tracks discovered? Who survived last month and how? These were life-or-death pieces of information. The stories told around the fire became the collective memory of the group, and that memory itself became one of the reasons humans stayed alive. The third weapon, high ground. Although this method was less effective against excellent climbers like leopards, it was still an extremely useful defense against staying on the ground and against many other predators that could not climb trees. Before fire, and even alongside it, high ground was a critical survival strategy. The trees of the African savanna, especially acacia trees, served as natural fortresses for early humans. Choosing a tree to sleep in at night was never random. The structure of the branches, the ability to clear space, the surrounding field of vision, all of these factors were carefully considered. An interesting fossil discovery revealed something remarkable. Australopithecus, one of humanity's ancestors from 2 to 3 million years ago, possessed a body built both for walking on the ground and climbing trees. Long arms, grasping fingers, powerful shoulder muscles. These features were not only for gathering fruit, they were also used for nighttime survival, and they worked remarkably well. During the era of Homo erectus, as the controlled use of fire became more widespread, this habit of sleeping in trees slowly began to disappear. Fire had finally made life on the ground possible, and for humanity, that marked the beginning of an entirely new era. The fourth weapon, nature's alarm system. The savanna of our ancestors was never truly silent. There was an unspoken cooperation among prey animals against predators. Animals warned one another, and our ancestors learned to recognize and understand this system. If a herd of impalas suddenly began running, it meant a predator was nearby. If birds unexpectedly took flight during the night, something had disturbed them. If jackals suddenly fell silent, it meant a larger predator was approaching. These signals were the result of hundreds of thousands of years of observation, and the stories told around the fire carried this knowledge from one generation to the next. But humans did not stop there, because humanity possessed something unique, the ability to learn, adapt, and understand. Even the wolf, the ancestor of the modern dog, began to change alongside humans. The earliest evidence of domestication dates back nearly 15,000 years. Some genetic studies suggest this partnership may go back as far as 40,000 years. This cooperation was not an accident. Wolves became accustomed to feeding on leftover food from human camps and slowly began integrating themselves into human life. Humans, in return, benefited from the wolves' extraordinary senses. Over time, this relationship evolved into a deep bond. The wolf became humanity's eyes in the night. It helped humans stay alive. Two different species, protecting and following one another through a system of mutual survival. The fifth weapon, knowledge and prediction. In moments of danger, there was something even more important than defense itself, prediction. Knowing where a predator was mattered far more than facing it directly, because it meant less risk, less danger, a greater chance of survival. Your ancestors' trackers were extraordinarily skilled, and that skill gave them power. Cracks in the soil, the direction crushed grass bent toward, the scent of blood, the freshness of remains and decay. All of these revealed information about a predator's movements, condition, and how long ago it had hunted. A hungry lion was far more dangerous than one that had recently fed, and that knowledge was priceless. This is why the elders of the group were among its most valuable members. They may have lost much of their physical strength, but the knowledge they carried became directly tied to the survival of the entire group. Evolutionary biologists discuss this idea through what is known as the grandmother hypothesis. Why do humans continue living long after their reproductive years are over? Because older individuals pass down experience, survival knowledge, and the ability to predict danger. Knowledge was humanity's oldest weapon. The sixth weapon, sound and smell. Loud noises, conversations, pounding sounds, shouting, could frighten away small and medium-sized predators from a distance. especially when many voices were heard together. For most predators, the sense that an unknown, large, organized presence was nearby acted as a natural deterrent. Fire itself was also a powerful source of scent because of its smoke. That smoke interfered with predators' sense of smell and sent confusing signals about human locations. Even today, some traditional human communities burn specific plants and flowers in order to keep predators away. And this practice most likely stretches back far deeper into the ancient past. The seventh weapon, the spear. Now we arrive at the first true weapon humanity created. The oldest known stone tools date back nearly 3.3 million years, but these were primarily tools for cutting and scraping. The first real spear points, however, date back roughly 500,000 years. Discovered at Cathupan, these spear tips provide evidence of something revolutionary, a throwable, targeted, long-range weapon. And that changed everything. For the first time, humans no longer had to confront predators tooth against tooth at close range. They could threaten danger from a distance. They could defend themselves while maintaining space between themselves and the predator. But even then, a single human still could not stand alone against a giant cave lion. That is why the group remained essential. Together, armed with new tools, humans became stronger and far safer than before. Now let's take a step back and look at all of these strategies together. Fire, the group, high ground, nature's alarm system, knowledge, sound and smell, the spear. Were any of these weapons enough on their own? No. They only worked because they functioned together, creating a complete system of survival against countless different threats. And for that system to work, coordination was necessary. Coordination required communication, and communication required language. Some evolutionary linguists believe that human language partially developed in response to the need to coordinate against these dangers. Who will keep watch tonight? What kind of predator is approaching? How far away is it? How many are there? These were the kinds of questions early humans asked around the fire deep into the night, and over time, those questions gave birth to language. Language gave birth to stories. Stories gave birth to culture, which means the very animals that once hunted humans indirectly helped create one of humanity's greatest inventions. Humanity has come an unbelievably long way. Tonight, you will lock your door, and that lock will give you something rare in human history, real, guaranteed safety. But our ancestors built that safety long before locks ever existed, with fire, with the group, with knowledge, with sound, and with the stories they told one another in the darkness. For 300,000 years, through endless struggle, loss, fear, and survival, they learned, and they endured. That's why you are here today, so tonight, lock your door.